Oklahoma's second largest city is a treasure trove of historic and cultural buildings and resources. Tulsa is home to the nation's second largest number of Art Deco buildings. One of its most famous is the Boston Avenue Methodist Church. It's also home to museums like the Philbrook. It houses art treasures from around the globe. There's also the Gilcrease Museum with its vast collection of Western art. And there are cemeteries that date back to well before statehood. It has university and public libraries crammed with rare books, artifacts, and archival material.
Even places like the Tulsa Historical Society or the Greenwood Cultural Center.
Tulsa is also the first city in the nation to ever get a $150,000 federal grant, with $65,000 of it earmarked to draw up plans to protect its historic and cultural treasures from both natural and man-made disasters.
The grant came from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. It's a pre-disaster mitigation grant. It consisted of two parts. The first was to update the City of Tulsa Hazard Mitigation Plan, which looks at mitigating disasters before they happen. The second part was a pilot study to develop an annex looking at historic properties and cultural resources. How can we look at protecting our historic properties and cultural resources before a disaster happens?
Already, more than 60 sites have been identified around Tulsa, and tomorrow night there'll be an open meeting here at the Philbrook to ask the public to come and suggest ideas for even more sites to be included in the program. Steve Ramsey heads up security at the Philbrook Museum. It's his job to protect each and every painting, statue, and artifact. Now he's also working with dozens of entities across the city to help draw up the initial list of sites and collections to include in the disaster mitigation program, and to prepare a list of the types of disasters that could affect them.
So in tornadoes, flooding, that type of thing, internal pipe system breaks in your building and your building floods, fires, if you're around the refinery, there could be a gas discharge from the refinery. Went through and just identified all kinds of different threats to each building and each community.
And we look at the locations of the historic properties and cultural resources and determine what hazards affect those different facilities. Then you develop mitigation measures that can be done before a disaster to minimize the impact of disasters.
Many places like museums and libraries already have some disaster preparedness plans in place. What this grant does is help widen the scope of preparedness to help ensure irreplaceable historic treasures aren't lost to a preventable mishap. In Tulsa, I'm Kathy Tatum, the Oklahoma News Report.